Welcome to Spark Sessions. My guest today is going to ignite your soul. Suzy Woo is an international consciousness medicine expert who practices and teaches advanced energy healing, astrology, spiritual development, and self-empowerment. Known for her enormous enthusiasm and contagious optimism, she is a favored speaker and presenter on spirituality, positivity, mindset, and domestic violence. Suzy brings her powerful sound baths, presentations, and teachings on the road and leads life-changing retreats. She received her MWBE certification in 2023, and she's based in New York. I am so excited to welcome her to the show because we are going to be talking about astrology and using energy healing for personal and professional growth. Welcome to the show, Miss Suzy Woo.
Thank you. Thank you, Miss Shari. So happy to be.
So excited to have you here. The first time that I met you, your energy was electrifying. Like I could feel it right now. I'm buzzing from the moment we just got on. So I'm trying to go focus, but you know, the energy is, as you probably know, and no pun intended, or maybe pun intended, off the charts. So in the intro, you know, I mentioned the word, and it stands out more than any other word because it was a surprise. When you hear the words domestic violence, it's not something that is so much talked about all the time, especially when it comes to the healing, energetic astrology world and someone as powerful and electrifying as you. So I'm just going to start right there because I know that I'm sure stood out to other people as well. So share with me a little bit how you go from being a domestic violence survivor, being a victim of it, and then losing your voice to becoming a powerful, outspoken healer and empowerment coach and someone that is really lighting up and transforming the world.
Yeah. So, you know, those are such a cool intro. It's like, woo, woo, woo. And then domestic violence at the end. Then it's like, oh, yeah. And the beautiful part is I'm not in that circumstance anymore. And it was 22 years of my life that started all the way back when I was just 16. And so when I finally left and stayed left, I started to rediscover my love of astrology, and I wanted to know why. You know, my mindset was what was so wrong with me that I was in what I was in and stayed in it for 22 years. But it's not that there was anything wrong. I just didn't recognize it for what it was, and I didn't know how to reach out for help. Mm-hmm. So once I started diving back into astrology, I tripped upon the terms narcissist and empath, and I wove psychology in with astrology. And it was very, very interesting to learn. I studied charts of criminals, and I found a lot of patterns that established like red flags potentially in a dangerous partner. And I was kind of a dead ringer for everything.
Yeah, well, I wasn't going to say win-win, but I mean, if you're going to go all in, go all in.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And I'm a Scorpio rising, and any Scorpio energy is intense and goes all in, full bore.
Right. So let's talk briefly about that, because you just casually mentioned, you know, you decided to go back into astrology. Was astrology, has it always been a part of who you are? Have you always been a spiritual seeker?
No, I just always loved the stars. And I had a dream when I was a little kid. I remember having a dream that I walked out into the driveway and looked up, and there was like a little popsicle stick with a sign on it. It said Jupiter. It was like stuck in the planet in that dream. And it always just felt somehow resonant. And when I used to go to like the drugstore with my uncle or my parents or whatever, they used to have the little scrolls with astrology at the checkout. And I always used to get my astrology, and it always felt cool. And so after I got out of my marriage, I found a local person that teaches astrology. And so that just opened everything back up. And the whole reason as to why, you know, my own deep questions, I actually found in a chart, and learning how to, you know, what do these hieroglyphics mean, and potential downfalls. What are your strengths? What are things you got to, you know, watch for? And when you're empathic, you want to fix people and heal people. And so you're going to get people who need fixing. But in the meantime, they actually kind of sink their hooks into you. And then you don't know what happened and where to go.
Right. Wow. So would you say, though, then talking about astrology kind of like as the framework, would you say that it's almost a roadmap for people to figure out what to do, their paths?
It sure is. A birth chart is like your own personal recipe card. And so what it is when you drew your first breath, it's like a picture is taken of where all of the planets were, what constellation they were going through. And then each one of those has meaning. And then that gives you your psychological profile, actually. And so you can use current, where everything is today, overlaid on your chart to give you very accurate timing techniques. So the day that I got married, something was happening in my chart that was about power, manipulation, abuse, and control with a 20-year lasting cycle.
Oh, wow.
So if you are not living consciously, if you're on the sidelines and you're not really taking the reins of your own life, then these are the potentials of what's going to happen to you. But why getting a chart done is so wonderful is it shows you your potential. So it could be, I'm kind of living the lower expression of that sign. For example, let's say Virgo. The low road expression of Virgo is very hypersensitive about the self. And the extreme are people who do cutting, self-harm. It has to do with health and anxiety and not getting anything right and nervousness. But the high road expression of Virgo is eating clean. It's grains and produce and plants and healing and being of service to others. And then there's a secret for the Virgos. So when I am in service to others, I receive healing. So it's really cool because all of the signs have that, a low road and a high road expression of it.
So it is, like I said, a map then, because I guess it gives you a direction, a map, and as well as, things to look out for, kind of like a key. I remember learning about, so I grew up and my mom used to go to astrology readings every week. She got her chart read, and I had no idea what she was doing, but I was always sitting in the living room at this woman's house and just listening. So I was always interested as well. I would read about sun signs and all that, growing up. But what I loved is that every time she walked out of there, she had a sense of confidence in a way. And I know that you work specifically with people on helping to build their confidence. Would you say that's kind of similar to what she was feeling?
I think so, because when you meet somebody who speaks the language and they're able to translate it into a way that you can understand it, it is like a roadmap. So these are the energies that's coming in for smaller periods and longer periods. And this is how it's going to impact your chart. So this way, it's like the weather report. So you know how to dress if it's going to be a blizzard outside. It's a wonderful tool to be able to utilize and to weave that into your confidence. I mean, if you know what the weather is, you don't have anything to worry about.
True.
It helps you ride the wave.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you left your relationship and you really dove into astrology also, well, why don't you share first before I try to paraphrase it? Why don't you share a little bit about what energy healing is for those who don't know much about it?
Awesome. So what I do is it's something that one of the terms is quantum healing. Mm-hmm. And so the easiest way to express that is if you have a set of twins and one goes halfway around the world and twin number one has a fender bender, because I don't want anyone getting hurt. So they have a little accident. Well, twin number two is going to feel, something's wrong, something's off. And they call them, you okay? So that is quantum entanglement. And so we live in a holographic universe, which is also quantum. So if I am doing a healing for John Smith in Budapest, I can just call up his hologram and work on his hologram because John Smith is not in my office.
Right.
And this is so strong that it has shrunken tumors in Germany. And the woman wrote me a review. So it helps people to eliminate, surgeries potentially. But what it does is it reads a person's state. And I trace that down and I reroute it and then kind of replace it with health or wellness or whatever they're lacking. It's almost like how a tuning fork tunes a guitar. When you're out of tune, you sound like the band warm up and everything's kind of off. Yeah. And then once you tune everything up, that's also why sound healing works. And when you tune everything up, now you're running premium and you are a walking symphony.
I just got I don't know if you heard me. I went, because I could feel the energy shift from being able to master that, to be able to, take people's energy and bring it back to center and grounded and peaceful and confident and all of that. But how did you, like you say everything so casually, Suzy, like, oh, we just do this and we do that. How did you get involved? Like, how were you always reading energy? Were you always connected? Tell me about that.
I was always sensitive. So, the biggest thing I remember my mom saying, Suzy, you're so sensitive and you're so naive and you're so gullible. Those are signs of being an empath. And when you are super sensitive like that, you want to help everybody. And so I was always like, I know this isn't the right term to use, but like stealing canned vegetables out of the Lazy Susan at home to donate them to the food drive at school. So like without permission. But I also don't consider it a gift. I consider it a skill. We are all born with these abilities. So we all have the ability, but when you work at it, it's like going to the gym and you're working out your spiritual muscles. So the more you use it, the better it gets. Really, when I'm doing a healing on somebody, I go back into their early childhood and I find the beginning point of what I call the pain body. And it always just shows up. So I'll just go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and these are years of age. And I'll get a hard stop. And then I'll get that version of that person because it still exists. So they might be operating from others overpowering them. Stop asking questions. I'm too busy. You're not important. I need to do this. So now that person is going to be afraid to ask questions because they feel unimportant. So in that instance, I bring that version forth. I let them receive divine healing, and then I put it back into their current timeline and I let it grow up. So now that doesn't exist anymore, and they'll have more confidence to speak and to ask questions and not be so worried about everyone else trying to shut them down. It's really cool. So it's just kind of like one thing led to another. And as I play and toy, because I need proof. I don't trust, everyone's like, oh, me. Nah, I'm not buying it. So until even when I went to a pendulum class, I'm watching somebody and they're holding it and they're going, whoa. And in my head, they're moving it. And I don't trust until I do it myself. Yeah. So I found a tool that measures my work. Because when I first started doing energy healing, people were like, oh, I feel so much better. And I was thinking they're just saying it to make me feel good. And then I needed to find a way to quantify and measure. And I found some German technology, and it shows the chakras, it shows the aura. So if I have an in-person client, I put the device on them and it measures and shows. So the before and after contrast. So if it isn't enough that the person feels like $1 million, the people in their lives notice they glow. Yeah. People get a glow when they get this, when they get this energy healing. It's euphoric. And it has, so I have a friend whose sister lost her father and her significant other inside of a month. Chronic depression, 3 years of crying daily. One session, and she stopped crying. One session, a single session. So that's kind of one of the big ones I want to reflect on, the power of what this does. And it's not mine. It's not me. You have to open up and you've got to go into your heart because love does heal everything. Mm-hmm. So when we're in our head and we're in judgment, we're trying to work out these problems, it's not going to work. When you're like, oh, I give it up, and you go into your heart space and you just chill in there, then the answers float in. So when I go to work on a client, I got to step aside. It's kind of like a manhole. I slide it over, I let the light come in, and it just kind of like comes out. It comes through me to the person, no matter whether they're here in front of me or they're in Budapest or
Okay.
Mars.
I mean, I feel like you were saying, it's exciting. You love this stuff. Like you could feel that you love and that this is playful. And it creates such a space for people to open up to healing because your energy is infectious. I said that at the beginning, and your enthusiasm around it. And I'm curious, who are the kind of people that come to you? And do you have to be, I'm just going to use the word, it's weird, but believer?
Absolutely not. You don't need to be a believer, but you do need to be open. So if you come to me and you're like this, well, I'm probably not going to be able to help you. You have to be a little bit open. You don't have to believe in anything because this is not religious. It's none of that stuff. It's quantum and provable too. So the clients that I serve are from housewives to, I see a lot of people who work in the medical industry, healthcare industry. I see judges, I see town clerks, I see professional athletes because it helps them to be able to relax. I do a lot of, now I actually weave the energy healing in with business coaching, with astrology, big lump package there, so that everything, it's like the second, minute, and hour hand on a clock. So that they're all synchronized in one human's life experience. Yeah.
Because you can't, we can't separate the personal and professional because we're all, this is all of that we do.
Right. Yeah. The last regular job that I had was at the IRS. So it's not fun. It's not creative. And it was just very deflating. So if I would have stayed in that job, because money is a root chakra issue, it's survival. And it's so taking on a job that I couldn't stand because I had to put food on the table. We've been raised that way. It doesn't matter what you do. You got to feed your kids. Blah, blah, blah. Well, I don't agree with that. You do what you love and you find a way to get paid for it. And then the money will just flow to you. And you are in alignment that way. You have to do what's in alignment with your values. Otherwise, you're just going to run into the wall every time. So if I would have stayed in that IRS job, then I would have either had a blowout in my hips, lower back, or lower, because that's root chakra, or I would have gotten in a car accident going to work because I'm fighting something to keep that's not really meant for me.
And it sounds like with the root chakra is like this survival, and anytime you are constricted, you are shutting off the opportunity for anything to come in except struggle, right?
Exactly. Right. Yeah.
Talk to me about, because you are obviously doing sessions, you're coaching, you're mentoring, you're also speaking. I know I see you everywhere, just at this event and traveling. And talk to me about your presentations and what you do when you go out of town. How can people work with you, if they're not saying doing sessions?
So I super love to travel, and sometimes a business organization will hire me to come and present to their employees or their managers or whatever. Sometimes it's just about helping people to get along with one another, that kind of thing. And so if somebody hires me to do that, I'll go there, but then I'll build a whole bunch of other events around it. So I'll find a metaphysical space that has a room. I'll rent the room, and then I'll do one-on-one sessions.